Hey everyone, this is my first video of 2022. It's just going to be a wee short one, and it's just a few things that I bought in Poundstretcher and Poundland recently when I was back in Edinburgh. So it's just a couple of things I thought I'd show you in case you've not seen any of my other videos. I've only been doing this a month. I started in December 2021. I'm just vlogging my purchases. I'm trying to live on quite a tight budget and tighten it ever further if I possibly can. Be more accountable to myself about where I'm spending disposable income, and just letting people have a nosy as well. I'm a bit of a nosy person. I think it's human curiosity as to what people spend their money on. I think it's quite interesting, especially for anyone that's not actually in the UK and doesn't, you know, doesn't have an idea of what our local high street shops are like and how much things cost over here. So perhaps that's another perspective, or some way in which it's interesting. The things that are here in front of me are really cheap high street stores, Poundland and Poundstretcher. Obviously most things are around £1, hence the names of the shops. And it's a kind of a general store. I think it's like early 21st century general store. You can get toiletries, food, household objects, seasonal items, Christmassy kind of items, gifts, I suppose, if you want to buy. I mean, you can get, some of them have kind of basic clothes, and yeah, but they're, you can, I think probably most domestic essentials you could probably find in Poundland or Poundstretcher over here in the UK. I don't have any close to me now that I'm not living in a city, but I do tend to go in there when I have the opportunity and stock up on things like, for example, toothpaste. It's the cheapest place I found to get toothpaste. You can get toothpaste for kind of less than 60 pence. Yeah, just like kind of household basics. But I've also spotted, when I was in Edinburgh earlier this week, I saw these, and if you've watched a couple of my other videos, I've spoken about how I've started feeding the wild birds now that I'm living in the country, and that can rack up quite a bit of cost, because they're hungry, and the more you feed them, the more birds come, the more they eat, and the more expensive it is. So I consider it sounds a bit daft, but I consider it a hobby that I'm paying for, feeding wild birds and watching wild birds. I am learning more about them. I know much more about wild birds now than I knew 6 months ago, which types are visiting my garden and their different behaviours. I try and identify them with my bird books, and I go and look them up on Wikipedia, listen to the bird songs on the RSPB website as well. So it's education. I guess I'm paying for my education, but I thought these would be quite a good treat for them, because I usually buy the mealworms and I mix it up. I make my own mix for them. I buy seed, peanuts and mealworms, and I make them a mix for the feeders, and for the bird table. But I've never seen these before, and they had these in Poundstretcher in Edinburgh, and I don't know what a black soldier fly is. Apart from that's what they look like, which is not very appetizing, but it's obviously appetizing to these guys. And we actually have all these guys in our garden. That's a blue tit, a robin, and a greater spotted woodpecker, and we've got all of those coming to visit us. So these were pretty cheap. These were I think these packets of bird food were £1.49, and just for something new, I'm going to put that in their mix, and I think they'll like it. It is winter. I think wild birds need our support anyway because of habitat loss, but it's also winter, and it's not particularly cold at the moment, but obviously the temperature just does dip and it freezes, and this is Scotland, and we've got frost and floods and high winds and all sorts of challenges to wild birds. So hopefully they'll enjoy that, and that's a kind of a Christmas / New Year present for them. Same thing again. I've never seen this at, in the cheap shops where I usually buy bird food. I usually get it from kind of Home Bargains and B&M kind of places, or get it online, but I didn't know that this thing was available. So this is a bit of a treat again. Silkworm pupae. That's a chaffinch and a robin. We get those in the garden. I'm presuming that's a goldfinch because it says it down the bottom. I've never seen a goldfinch where I'm staying, but yeah, so the birds will be pleased, or at least curious and interested in different types of dried insects, so they'll be pretty chuffed. Yeah, as you may or may not know, we've been living in this wee farm cottage now for 6 months, and we have just bought our first bed. We came from having no furniture apart from a couple of, pretty trashy desks and bookcases. So we've had to furnish the whole of the cottage, trying to do it either for free, people giving away furniture on Facebook, or getting things secondhand. I did splash out on a bed for my son. He's a tall boy, so he's got a king size bed. His bed was really, really cheap. The bed frame was under £60, and so far it's really doing the job. But we only had one king sheet, so I did shop around for this because I was back in the city. I went to Primark in the first instance because they're pretty good for cheap. Again, cheap household basics, and I was in the vicinity of a Primark, so I went into Primark, but they didn't have a king sheet from their very, very cheap range, and Primark's very, very cheap range was £6.50 for a fitted sheet, and after that it jumped up to £11.50, and I didn't want to pay £11.50 for a fitted sheet, so I left it. And the next day I went into Poundstretcher, and this was I think this was £7.99. It was just under £8 anyway. It was either £7.50 or £7.99. And so that's good because we only had one fitted sheet before, and it's a problem in the winter trying to wash things and get them dry to put them back on the bed the same day. So we've got tons and tons of duvets, duvet sets, but we only had one king fitted sheet for the underneath. So now I can actually not worry so much about hurrying to get the one dry that's in the wash. Slightly annoying that I could have got it for £6.50 instead of £8 if I'd have managed to find one at Primark, but what are you going to do? That's still pretty cheap. I'm not too fussy. Obviously it's about as basic as you can get. It's just a basic cotton sheet. It's, there's no thread count, there's no kind of Egyptian cotton tagline. It's just really basic, really cheap. It does the job. I don't think I've ever slept on a fancy sheet, so I don't know the difference. I don't know what I'm missing, so I'm quite happily saving money on these kind of purchases by getting them as cheap as I possibly can. And then this is just a lovely jar that was £1 in the pound shop, and it says homemade on it. I'm not sure I'll be putting anything homemade in there, but one of the issues we've got at this farm cottage is that there's absolutely no storage. There's no cupboards. Even the kitchen, it only has lower level cupboards. There's no kind of eye level cupboards, which is really weird. It's a little bit disconcerting because can't think of last time I was in a house that didn't have kitchen cupboards that you reach up for. there's no cupboards in the house. There's no kind of built-in storage or anything. And there's one pantry shelf which is absolutely stacked full of our tinned goods and dried goods. Um, but what I'm getting around to saying in a roundabout kind of way is that everything that we've got is kind of on display because we've had to put it on. Um, we've had to buy a lot of shelving units because there's nothing built in. There's no very few closed cupboards in the kitchen. So everything you've got is in a way on display. So we did have a few jars that we brought with us from our last house that were kind of decorative where we used to live, but now they've actually got a use. Because things like packets of pasta and packets of rice, we don't have anywhere to hide them away. So unless you want a half open packet of rice hanging about the kitchen worktop, or threatening to be spilled anytime, you need to put them in something. And a lot of stuff's just ending up on windowsills and what have you, but we're using these jars and they're coming in really useful. So when we see quite a pretty one for a good price, we're picking it up, and that might be at a pound shop or it might be at a boot fair or a charity shop. And I quite like the ribbing on this one actually. So this hasn't got a designated filling as of yet, but it will do soon, I'm sure. And it's making our wee farm cottage kitchen look a wee bit more homely and a bit more decorative and a bit more organised as well. So yeah, we're managing. I'll tell you what about the bed though. It's been great having space under a bed to stash stuff away. The house is so much tidier with having a king size underbed space, and I'm really looking forward to getting the next one, but I'm saving up for the next bed. And furnishing a house is an expensive thing, and it's a really expensive endeavour, and kitchen jars are just the least of it. Anyway, I think I've done pretty well keeping this video to under 15 minutes. I'm not going to rattle on any longer. Thanks for watching. That's my Poundland and Poundstretcher bargains from the last few days of 2021. Cheers.